A wealthy businessman was visiting his wife's grave. Suddenly, he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around and saw a young waitress crying. She told him that she worked at the restaurant where he and his wife had their first date. The billionaire was deeply moved by her story and decided to do something incredible. He gave her a hefty tip, enough to change her life. And since then, the waitress has never forgotten the kindness of that mysterious man. This touching tale reminds us of the importance of human connection and the power of a single act of kindness. So make sure to watch this video until the end, and don't forget to share it with your loved ones. You never know whose life you might touch with this story. A wealthy man named Jonathan was visiting the grave of his late wife, Mary. He missed her dearly and often visited her grave to pay his respects and reminisce about their time together. One day, while standing by her grave, he felt someone tapping on his shoulder. He turned around to see a young woman in a waitress uniform crying. "I'm sorry to bother you," the woman began, her voice shaking, "but I couldn't help but notice you here. And well, it just brought back a flood of memories." Jonathan looked at her for a moment, confused. "What do you mean?" he asked. The woman took a deep breath and wiped away her tears. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to intrude. It's just that I work at the Starlight Diner, and my boss told me you were in there earlier. Said you reminded him of an old customer who used to come in with his wife. They were such a lovely couple," she added with a sigh. As she spoke, Jonathan realized that the diner she was talking about was the very same one where he and Mary had their first date years ago. He remembered how nervous he had been on that day, trying to impress Mary with his charm and good looks. They had shared a booth in that very diner, laughing and talking for hours over cups of coffee. It had been love at first sight for him, and he knew from that moment on that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. The thought of Mary brought a bittersweet smile to Jonathan's face. Of course, he had lost her to cancer a few years ago, but the memories they had shared were still as vivid as if they had just happened yesterday. "Yes, that was the place," he said softly. "And the woman you're thinking of is my late wife, Mary." The waitress's eyes widened in surprise. "I'm so sorry," she exclaimed. "I didn't know." She paused for a moment, then continued in a quieter voice. "It's just that sometimes when I'm serving customers, I see couples holding hands or sharing a kiss, and it reminds me of them. I can't help but feel a pang of longing in my heart." Jonathan nodded in understanding. He knew what it was like to miss someone so much that even the simplest things could bring back painful memories. "I understand," he said gently. "It's been 5 years since Mary passed away, and I still miss her every day. Sometimes it feels like just yesterday that we were walking hand in hand through the park, laughing and enjoying each other's company." The waitress bit her lip, trying to hold back her tears. "It's hard when you see other people moving on, when you feel like you're stuck in the past," she whispered. At that moment, Jonathan felt a surge of sympathy for the young woman. He could see how much she admired him and his late wife, and he knew that he had to do something to help her. But what? He thought about it for a moment. Then an idea struck him like a bolt of lightning. "Tell you what," he said with a smile. "Why don't you treat yourself to a nice meal at the Starlight Diner today? My treat, of course." The waitress looked up at him in surprise. "Oh, I don't know," she stammered. "I really shouldn't. I mean, I have to work anyway." "Nonsense," Jonathan said with a wave of his hand. "You deserve a break. Besides, it's the least I can do after intruding on your space here." The waitress hesitated for a moment, but she couldn't deny that she needed a break. She had been working long and hard hours to make ends meet, and hadn't had a day off in weeks. Plus, she couldn't resist the chance to visit the place where she and her late boyfriend had shared some of their best memories. "All right," she said, with a grateful smile. "Thank you so much. That would be wonderful." Jonathan smiled back. "Excellent," he said. "Then let's go. I'll drive you there myself." As they drove to the diner, the waitress couldn't help but admire Jonathan. He was a successful businessman, yet he was humble and kind. She could tell that he genuinely cared about her and wanted to help her, and that meant more to her than anything else. When they arrived at the diner, Jonathan insisted on walking the waitress to her table. As they approached, a hush fell over the room and all eyes turned towards them. The waitress felt a blush creep up her neck, and she quickly looked away. "Don't worry," Jonathan said, sensing her discomfort. "They're just staring because they don't understand why the owner is dining with a waitress." The waitress laughed, feeling relieved that Jonathan had broken the tension. As they sat down, she couldn't help but notice how much attention they were getting. Some of the customers were whispering to each other, and she could feel their stares burning into her skin. But despite the awkwardness, she was grateful for Jonathan's kindness. He ordered a bottle of wine and 2 glasses, and soon they were joined by a friendly waiter. The food was delicious, and the company was even better. Jonathan was a natural conversationalist, and he made the waitress laugh until her sides hurt. He was also a good listener, and he didn't push her to talk about anything she didn't want to. As the evening wore on, the waitress began to relax and enjoy herself. She had been so caught up in her own problems lately that she had forgotten how good it felt to laugh and have fun. As the night drew to a close, Jonathan paid the bill, and the waitress walked him to his car. "Thank you so much for tonight," she said, her eyes shining with gratitude. "It meant a lot to me." Jonathan smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're very welcome," he said. "I'm just glad I could help. And hey, if you ever need someone to talk to, you know where to find me." The waitress nodded, touched by his kindness. "I will," she promised. "I won't forget this." As Jonathan drove away, the waitress stood there watching him go. She couldn't help but wonder what her life would be like if she had someone as kind and caring as Jonathan in it. But she knew that was just a fantasy, and that she should be grateful for the friends she had. In the days that followed, the waitress couldn't stop thinking about her night out with Jonathan. She had so much fun, and it had given her a new perspective on life. She was still sad about the loss of her boyfriend, but she knew that he would want her to be happy and move on. She began taking small steps to improve her life. She started going to the gym, working on her fitness, and eating healthier. She also began volunteering at a local animal shelter, caring for abandoned and neglected animals. One day, while walking into the Starlight Diner, the waitress noticed a familiar face sitting in a booth. It was Jonathan. He'd returned to the diner where he and his late wife had shared their first date. And when he saw the waitress, he waved her over to his table. "Hey there," he said with a warm smile. "I didn't expect to see you here. Are you on your break?" "Yes," the waitress replied with a tight smile. I just came in to grab a quick bite to eat." "I didn't know you'd be here." "Me neither," Jonathan said. "I just had a sudden craving for one of your famous cheeseburgers. How are you doing, by the way? I haven't seen you in a while." She had been avoiding Jonathan since their night out together. She had felt guilty for enjoying herself so much when her boyfriend's family was still grieving his loss. "I'm fine," she said quickly, trying to hide her guilt. "Just busy with work and school. You know how it is." Jonathan nodded, understanding. Of course. Listen, I just wanted to check up on you. If you need anything, you know where to find me." The waitress forced a smile and nodded. But before she could turn away, Jonathan stopped her. "Wait," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out his wallet and handed the waitress a crisp $100 bill. "Here," he said. "It's just a little something to help you out, with bills and rent and stuff." The waitress stared at the money in her hands, shocked. "Oh no, I can't accept this," she stammered. I don't need any more money." "I mean, you already paid for my dinner and I owe you for that." "Nonsense," Jonathan said with a wave of his hand. "Think of it as a gift, and besides, I insist." The waitress knew that arguing with Jonathan would be pointless. He was a stubborn man who never took no for an answer. She simply thanked him and accepted the money. As the waitress walked away, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She knew that Jonathan had given her this money because he believed in her and wanted her to succeed. She wouldn't let him down. In the weeks that followed, the waitress used Jonathan's money to pay for her rent and buy new clothes. She was determined to make something of herself and prove to Jonathan that he had made the right decision by helping her. She began working overtime at the diner, saving every penny she earned. She also started taking night classes, studying hard, and improving her grades. Her hard work paid off, and she was soon able to get a promotion at the diner. She became a shift leader, responsible for opening and closing the restaurant. The waitress never forgot Jonathan's kindness. She often thought about how he had changed her life and wondered if he ever thought about her. One day, she decided to take action. She wrote Jonathan a heartfelt letter thanking him for his generosity and told him about her promotion. When Jonathan received the letter, he was overjoyed. He had only wanted to help the waitress, but he had no idea that she would use his money so wisely and accomplish so much. He was proud of her and knew that he had made the right decision by giving her a second chance. From that day on, Jonathan and the waitress remained friends. He continued to visit the Starlight Diner every now and then, and whenever he saw the waitress, he couldn't help but smile. He was proud of her and knew that she would go on to do great things in life.